For decades, Jack Nicholson was impossible to miss. He was everywhere, on movie screens, at awards shows, and courtside at Lakers games. Then, after his 2010 film, he almost completely stepped away from Hollywood. No dramatic farewell. No official retirement announcement. Just silence. But the truth behind his disappearance may be much simpler and more surprising than the rumors that followed. At 88, Nicholson has chosen a life far removed from the spotlight, leaving one question behind. Did Hollywood really lose Jack Nicholson, or did Jack simply decide he had enough? Long before Jack Nicholson disappeared from Hollywood, he had already become one of the most recognizable actors in the world. His face, his voice, and that famous grin could turn even a small role into something unforgettable. But Nicholson's journey to the top was not easy. Born in 1937 in Neptune City, New Jersey, Nicholson grew up with a complicated family story. For years, he believed the woman he knew as his sister was actually his sister. Later, he discovered that she was his mother. The truth came out only after he was already an adult. It was a shocking discovery that changed how he understood his own childhood. But instead of letting his unusual past define him, Nicholson focused on building a career. He arrived in Hollywood during a time when the movie business was changing. At first, he worked mostly in smaller films and supporting roles. He was not immediately treated like a future superstar. Yet Nicholson had something directors noticed very quickly. He had presence. Even when he was not the main character, it was difficult to ignore him. His big breakthrough came with Easy Rider in 1969. Nicholson played George Hansen, a lawyer whose appearance in the film helped turn him into a major Hollywood name. The role earned him his first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Suddenly, the actor who had spent years working his way through smaller opportunities was being taken seriously. Then came even bigger roles. Nicholson appeared in films such as 5 Easy Pieces, Chinatown, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. His performance in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest became one of the defining moments of his career and earned him his first Academy Award for Best Actor. But Nicholson was never the typical Hollywood leading man. He could play charming, dangerous, funny, rebellious, broken, or completely unpredictable. That range made him different from many of the stars around him. And Hollywood noticed. By the time Nicholson reached the height of his career, he was no longer simply an actor looking for great roles. He had become the kind of actor who could make people watch a movie simply because his name was on the poster. But the very fame that made Jack Nicholson a legend would eventually become one of the things he wanted to escape. And slowly, the man who had spent decades commanding Hollywood's attention began preparing to live without it. For most of Jack Nicholson's career, disappearing was almost impossible. He was one of those rare stars who seemed to belong everywhere in Hollywood. He appeared in major movies, attended big events, and became a familiar face at Los Angeles Lakers games. Even when he was not promoting a film, cameras often found him. Then something changed. After How Do You Know was released in 2010, Nicholson stopped appearing in new movies. At first, many people assumed he was simply taking a break. Hollywood had seen this before. Actors sometimes disappeared for a few years and then returned with an unexpected project. But Nicholson stayed away. 1 year passed, then another, and another. There was no big retirement ceremony, no emotional final interview announcing that his career was over. Instead, the silence itself became the story. That silence created a mystery. Why would one of Hollywood's most successful actors simply stop? Nicholson had already accomplished almost everything an actor could dream of. He had won 3 Academy Awards and received 12 acting nominations, a record that made him one of the most celebrated performers in Oscar history. He had played unforgettable characters and worked with some of the biggest directors in the business. So perhaps he no longer needed to prove anything. There was also another important factor. Nicholson had reached an age where working on a major movie could require months of preparation, long days on set, travel, interviews, and publicity. For someone who had spent decades living inside that world, stepping away may have felt natural. Still, the public wanted a clearer explanation. And that is where rumors began. Some reports suggested that Nicholson had memory problems. Others claimed that his health had become the main reason he stayed away from acting. But these claims were often repeated without solid confirmation from Nicholson himself. That distinction matters. When a famous person disappears from public life, people naturally try to fill the silence. A missing explanation can quickly become a collection of theories. Nicholson, however, did not seem interested in correcting every rumor. He simply continued living mostly outside the Hollywood spotlight. There was something almost unusual about the way he handled retirement, or what looked like retirement. He did not need a farewell tour. He did not need to announce that the legend was ending. He simply stopped making movies. And perhaps the most surprising part was that Hollywood kept waiting for him to come back. Every few years, another rumor appeared about a possible return. But Nicholson remained selective. The man who once seemed to be everywhere had become one of Hollywood's greatest mysteries. And the longer he stayed away, the more people wondered whether there was a hidden reason behind his decision, or whether the answer had been in front of them all along. The biggest clue about Jack Nicholson's disappearance may be hiding in what happened after he stopped making movies. He did not completely disappear. He simply became much harder to see. Nicholson's last released film was How Do You Know in 2010. Yet years later, he was still connected to the world he had loved for so long. One of the clearest examples was his famous relationship with the Los Angeles Lakers. For decades, Nicholson had been a familiar courtside presence, watching games with the same energy that made him famous on screen. But even those appearances became less common. Then, in 2025, something unexpected happened. Nicholson appeared during the 50th anniversary celebration of Saturday Night Live. It was only a brief public appearance, but it reminded millions of people that the Hollywood legend was still there. And the reaction was immediate. Fans were surprised. Many had not seen him publicly in a long time, so even a short appearance became a major entertainment story. But perhaps the most important part of Nicholson's story is that he never clearly announced a permanent retirement. Back in 2013, when reports claimed that he had stopped acting because of memory problems, Nicholson rejected the idea that he had retired. He said he was simply less interested in being out in the public world and wanted to work only on films that truly moved him. That gives his disappearance a very different meaning. Maybe this was never about one dramatic event. Maybe Nicholson simply reached a point where fame stopped being the most important thing in his life. After decades of premieres, interviews, cameras, awards, and movie sets, he had earned the right to choose what came next. And he chose privacy. Even longtime collaborator James L. Brooks has said that he does not consider Nicholson officially retired. In 2023, Brooks explained that he did not believe Nicholson had completely closed the door on acting. That leaves us with a fascinating possibility. Jack Nicholson may not have walked away because Hollywood rejected him. Hollywood may have been waiting for Jack Nicholson to come back. But Nicholson was no longer chasing Hollywood, and that difference could explain almost everything. For years, fans wondered whether Jack Nicholson would ever step back into the public eye. Then, in February 2025, he surprised everyone. Nicholson appeared at the 50th anniversary celebration of Saturday Night Live. It was one of his rare public appearances in years, and the moment immediately caught attention. He was there to introduce Adam Sandler, who performed during the special. For longtime fans, seeing Nicholson again felt almost unreal. This was the same actor who had once been one of Hollywood's most visible stars. But now, even a short appearance had become a major event. And there was something important about what he did. He did not return to promote a new movie. He did not announce a comeback. He simply appeared for a special moment connected to a show that had been part of American entertainment for 5 decades. That tells us something about Nicholson's life today. He may have stepped away from acting, but he has not completely cut himself off from the world he came from. In fact, this was not his first connection to Saturday Night Live. Nicholson had also appeared during the show's 40th anniversary special in 2015. He has also made other rare public appearances over the years, including a memorable interview about his friendship with Muhammad Ali in 2016. But the 2025 appearance felt different. The audience was seeing a Hollywood legend who had been almost completely absent from movie screens for around 15 years. And once again, the biggest question returned. Could Jack Nicholson ever act again? Technically, the door has never been completely closed. His last film was How Do You Know, released in 2010. Although he has not made another feature film since then, Nicholson said in 2013 that he did not consider himself officially retired. He explained that he was simply less driven to be out in public and work constantly. That is a very different story from a dramatic Hollywood retirement. Nicholson did not say, "I am finished forever." Instead, he seemed to leave the decision open. But as the years passed, his absence became longer. The offers became less important than his own choice. And fans slowly began to understand that getting Jack Nicholson back on a movie set might not be the ending the story was heading toward. Maybe the real ending was something much quieter. A legendary actor choosing when the cameras no longer mattered. And after everything Nicholson had given Hollywood, perhaps that choice belonged entirely to him. Jack Nicholson's disappearance from Hollywood did something unusual. It made people appreciate his career even more. When an actor keeps appearing in new movies, audiences can sometimes take that presence for granted. Nicholson chose the opposite path. After How Do You Know in 2010, he largely stayed away from film, yet his name never stopped carrying weight. That is the mark of a true movie star. Nicholson did not need another blockbuster to remind people who he was. His earlier work had already become part of Hollywood history. From Easy Rider to Chinatown, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Shining, and As Good as It Gets, he created characters that audiences still remember. And his rare public appearances only strengthened that feeling. When Nicholson appeared at the Saturday Night Live 50th Anniversary Special in February 2025, he was not returning to promote a new movie. He simply appeared to introduce Adam Sandler's performance. For a few moments, the spotlight found him again. But this time, the story was not about a new role. It was about the man behind all those roles. That may be the real answer to the mystery surrounding his disappearance. Jack Nicholson spent more than half a century giving Hollywood his time, talent, and unforgettable performances. Eventually, he had earned something many celebrities struggle to find, the freedom to step away. People may continue to wonder whether he will ever make another movie. Maybe he will. Maybe he will not. But there is no need to create a dramatic ending where none exists. Nicholson's story does not have to end with a final performance. His legacy is already there. 3 Academy Awards, 12 acting nominations, decades of unforgettable movies, and a screen presence that helped define an era of American cinema. The man who once seemed impossible to ignore eventually became one of Hollywood's most private legends. And perhaps that is why his disappearance makes sense. He did not disappear because people forgot Jack Nicholson. He disappeared because he no longer needed to remind them who he was. And after everything he achieved, that may have been the most powerful choice of all.